Part 1, The First Cracks. I still remember the way the rain fell the night everything began to change. Not the thunderstorm kind of rain, not the heavy summer pour that leaves the street steaming afterward, but the kind of quiet drizzle that seems endless, tapping lightly on windows and softening the edges of neon signs. That's how Seattle often feels, blurred around the edges, like life here never offers sharp lines, only shades of gray. I had always thought it suited me, steady, predictable, grounded. But life has a way of unraveling even in the most ordinary places. My name is Daniel Reed. I'm 36 years old, an accountant by trade, and I live in a modest two-bedroom townhouse in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. My wife, Emily, is 32. She's the kind of woman people remember after meeting only once, her auburn hair falling just below her shoulders, a quiet confidence in her posture, and the sort of smile that makes you feel like she's listening only to you. We've been married for 8 years. 8 years that I thought, for the most part, were good. When I look back now, I try to pinpoint the exact moment things began to shift. Was it the night she stayed late at work for the third time in a week? Or when she suddenly started paying more attention to her phone, turning it face down on the table during dinner? Maybe it was something even smaller, like the way her laugh sounded a little different, reserved, as if it belonged to someone else when we were together. But back then, in those early moments, I wasn't piecing together a puzzle. I was just living my life. The rhythm of ordinary life. Our mornings always followed a pattern. I'd wake up around 6, pour myself a cup of black coffee, and sit by the kitchen window while the city stirred outside. Emily usually woke up an hour later, her footsteps soft against the hardwood as she made her way to the kitchen in her robe. She worked as a marketing manager for a tech company downtown, which often demanded long hours. Still, we found time for each other, or at least, we used to. One morning, I noticed she skipped breakfast altogether, claiming she was late for a meeting. That wasn't unusual, but something in her tone felt rehearsed. I brushed it off, kissed her cheek, and told her I'd see her later. She smelled faintly of a new perfume, something floral but sharp, not the vanilla lavender scent she'd worn for years. New perfume? I asked casually. She smiled quickly, almost too quickly. Oh, yeah. Picked it up on sale the other day. Do you like it? I nodded. It's nice. Different. And that was it. She left, rushing down the steps, her heels clicking against the wet pavement. Different. That word lingered with me long after she was gone. The first useless clue. That evening, I came home before her. The house felt too quiet without her usual presence, no music playing from the Bluetooth speaker, no half-empty wine glass on the counter. I made dinner, something simple, just spaghetti with a jarred marinara, and waited. By 8:30, she still wasn't home. At 9, I texted her, "Everything okay?" 10 minutes later, she replied, "Sorry, still at work. Don't wait up, love you." Love you. 2 simple words, and yet they felt oddly distant. I stared at the message for longer than I should have. The "love you" wasn't followed by her usual heart emoji. It shouldn't have mattered, but it did. She came home past 11 that night. I was half asleep on the couch when the door finally opened. She looked exhausted, her hair slightly damp from the rain, makeup faded. She leaned down, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "Go to bed, babe. I'll join you in a minute." But she never did. When I woke up in the middle of the night, the other side of the bed was empty. I found her asleep on the couch, phone clutched tightly in her hand. I didn't wake her. Instead, I stood there in the dark, staring at her peaceful face, and felt something heavy press against my chest. Conversations that meant nothing, and everything. The next weekend, we went out for brunch at one of our usual spots, a little cafe on Pine Street. It was the kind of place filled with mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus, where we had spent countless Sunday mornings over the years. Emily looked radiant that morning. She wore a cream-colored sweater and had curled her hair in loose waves. She smiled, laughed at small things, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was performing. Like she was reciting lines in a play rather than just being there with me. "You've been quiet," she said, sipping her mimosa. "Just tired," I lied. "Work?" "Yeah. The Johnson account's a mess." She nodded, pretending to listen, but her eyes drifted toward her phone each time it buzzed. "Everything okay?" I asked finally, my fork pausing midair. "Yeah, just work stuff." She tucked her phone away in her purse. "Sorry. It should have ended there." But as we left the cafe, her phone buzzed again, and I saw her glance at the screen before quickly shoving it back. I caught only a fragment of the notification, a name starting with M. I didn't ask. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband. But that single letter burned itself into my mind. Seattle nights. Seattle can be a lonely city at night. The streets glow under flickering lamplight, the air damp with mist, and the sound of distant traffic hums like a lullaby. I often went for walks when I couldn't sleep, letting the cool air clear my head. One particular night, after another late arrival from Emily, I wandered down Broadway. Couples passed by me, laughing, holding hands, ducking into bars or coffee shops that stayed open late. I thought of how Emily and I used to be that couple, spontaneous, carefree, in love. Now, even when she was sitting right next to me, I felt the distance stretching wider each day. When I returned home, she was already in bed, fast asleep. I noticed her phone on the nightstand, screen glowing faintly. My hand hovered over it for a long time. I could have picked it up, could have unlocked it. I knew her passcode. But I didn't. Not yet. The first crack in the glass. The moment that really unsettled me came 2 weeks later. Emily mentioned casually that she had a team-building event after work and wouldn't be home until late. She left in a sleek black dress I hadn't seen before, her lips painted a shade of red she rarely wore. "You look amazing," I said, genuinely taken aback. She smiled but didn't meet my eyes. "Thanks, babe. Don't wait up." I tried to busy myself with TV, then reading, then pacing around the house. Midnight came and went. At nearly 1:30 in the morning, I heard the lock turn. She slipped inside quietly, as if hoping I'd be asleep. But I wasn't. "You're late," I said from the couch, my voice calm but heavy. She jumped slightly, surprised. "Oh, I didn't think you'd still be up. Team building ran long." "Yeah. We went to this rooftop bar after dinner. Just a few drinks." She smelled of perfume again, the same new scent, stronger this time. And faintly, underneath it, something else, a trace of cologne that wasn't mine. I wanted to ask. I wanted to demand answers. But instead, I just nodded slowly. "You hungry? I saved some leftovers." Her shoulders relaxed, just slightly. "No, I'm good. Thanks." She kissed me on the cheek and disappeared into the bathroom. I sat there in the living room, staring at the wall, feeling like a fool. A ring of glasses. On Tuesday evening, I came home earlier than usual. The living room smelled faintly of wine, though Emily hadn't been home long enough to open a bottle. On the coffee table, I noticed 2 glasses, one rinsed out in the sink, the other still half full, abandoned as if in a hurry. "Did someone stop by?" I asked casually when she appeared from the bedroom, tying her hair up. She froze, only for a second, but it was long enough. "Oh, yeah. Megan." She dropped something off. "We had a quick drink." "Megan from your office?" She said, avoiding eye contact. I nodded, forcing a smile. "You could have called me down. I'd have joined you guys." She couldn't stay long. Emily's voice was clipped, rushed. "You hungry?" I was thinking Thai takeout tonight. The conversation shifted, but my mind didn't. The half-empty glass haunted me. Megan, or someone else. Random traces. The next morning, while putting on my shoes in the hallway, I noticed a small detail, a faint smudge of foundation on the collar of one of my jackets hanging by the door. I didn't wear foundation. Emily rarely borrowed my coats, and even if she had, she wouldn't have left makeup there. I touched the fabric, staring at the stain, my heart pounding. It could have been from weeks ago, I told myself. A meaningless accident. But once suspicion starts gnawing at you, everything becomes evidence. At work, I couldn't focus. Numbers blurred on spreadsheets, deadlines slipped. My colleague, Andrew, asked if I was okay. I gave him the same excuse I always did, didn't sleep much. Sleep. That was another thing unraveling. Emily often went to bed after me, claiming she had emails to send, and I would wake up in the middle of the night to find her side of the bed cold, empty. Sometimes she was in the living room, scrolling her phone. Sometimes she wasn't there at all. The dinner that didn't happen. Friday night, I suggested we go out for dinner. That Italian place you love, I said, trying to sound cheerful. It's been a while. Her smile was warm, but her eyes flickered away. I wish I could, but I promised Sarah I'd meet her for drinks tonight. Rain check. Sarah. Another name I hadn't heard in months. I nodded slowly. Sure. Have fun. She kissed me quickly before leaving, dressed casually but with a little too much effort, makeup sharper, perfume stronger. I told myself I wouldn't check. That I wouldn't stoop so low. But an hour after she left, curiosity devoured me. I called Sarah. Hey, Dan, she answered, cheerful. Hey, sorry to bother you. Just wondering, are you and Emily out tonight? A pause. No, why? My throat tightened. She mentioned she was meeting you. Oh. Sarah's tone shifted, uneasy. Maybe she meant someone else. We haven't made plans in a while. I hung up quickly, thanked her, and sat there in silence. My hands shook as I placed the phone down. That was the moment the doubt solidified into certainty. Rain on the windshield. I drove aimlessly that night, rain streaking across the windshield like melting glass. Seattle's lights shimmered against wet pavement, distorted by puddles and the haze of mist. I ended up parking near her office building downtown, staring at the revolving glass doors. At 10:30, I saw her emerge, not with Sarah, not with anyone from work. She was with a man. Tall, dark hair, a confident stride. They walked close, shoulders almost touching, and then paused under the glow of a street lamp. He leaned in slightly, said something that made her laugh, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard in months. She touched his arm. He touched her back. And though they didn't kiss, the intimacy between them was undeniable. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My chest burned, but I didn't move. I just watched as they hailed a cab together, slipping inside. I didn't follow. I couldn't. My body felt paralyzed, my mind spiraling into 1,000 jagged thoughts. The lie. She came home past midnight, humming softly, cheeks flushed. How was Sarah? I asked from the couch, my voice steady though I felt hollow inside. Good. We went to this wine bar in Belltown. Lots of catching up. I stared at her. She didn't even flinch as she lied. Not a stutter, not a nervous glance. Just smooth, practiced ease. That's nice, I said, forcing a smile. She kissed my forehead and walked upstairs, humming again. The sound pierced me like glass splintering under pressure. The mirror and the mask. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror, searching for answers in my own reflection. My eyes looked tired, hollow. My jaw clenched tightly. Was I imagining things? Was I overreacting? Maybe the man was just a colleague, a friend. Maybe the lie about Sarah was, what? A cover for something innocent. But deep down, I already knew. You don't hide innocence behind lies. You don't laugh with a colleague the way she laughed under that street lamp. A conversation without words. The next morning, I made pancakes, trying to cling to some sense of normalcy. Emily walked into the kitchen wearing one of my old shirts, hair tousled, smiling faintly. "You're spoiling me," she said, sitting at the table. "Just thought we could have breakfast together," I replied. She reached for her phone instinctively, and I watched as she read a message, her lips curving into a smile she didn't share with me. "Who's that?" I asked softly. "Just Megan," she answered too quickly. I nodded, setting the plate down. We ate in silence, forks clinking against porcelain, the air thick with everything unsaid. Sleepless. That night, I lay awake while Emily slept soundly beside me. Her breathing was steady, peaceful, as if nothing in the world troubled her. I turned toward the ceiling, counting the faint shadows cast by the streetlight outside. I thought of our early years together, the road trips down the Oregon coast, the nights spent dancing in tiny bars, the plans we made for a family we never started. I thought of the vows we exchanged, promises etched into memory. And then I thought of her standing under that street lamp with him. Sleep never came. The breaking point approaches. By Sunday, the tension was unbearable. Emily suggested we go grocery shopping together, a mundane task that once felt comforting. I agreed, desperate for some sense of normalcy. As we walked through the aisles, I caught her glancing at her phone, smiling faintly at messages she didn't share. When I asked her if we needed milk, she answered distractedly, not even looking at me. It felt like being with a stranger. Back home, while she showered, her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with a name, Mark. The message preview read, "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." My heart stopped. My hands trembled. That was it. No more doubts. No more maybes. The truth was finally staring me in the face. I didn't confront her immediately. You'd think that after seeing his name flash across her phone, after reading those words, I would have stormed into the bathroom, shoved the phone in her face, demanded answers. But instead, I froze. That's the strange thing about betrayal, you imagine yourself as decisive, ready to act, but when it finally stares you in the face, you're paralyzed. It felt as if the air had thickened, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. Her phone buzzed again, another message, but the preview disappeared before I could read it. I placed the device back exactly where it had been, my hands trembling. Moments later, she stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, steam following her like a ghost. "Hey," she said casually, as if the world hadn't shifted beneath my feet. "Want to order something for dinner?" Her voice was soft, natural. Perfectly normal. I stared at her, wondering how long she'd been practicing that normalcy. Small tests. Over the next few days, I tested her in small ways. One evening, I asked, "How's Megan doing? You've been seeing her a lot lately." Emily barely blinked. "She's good. Stressed with work, but hanging in there." A lie, smooth and polished. Another time, I casually said, "Sarah texted me the other night, asking about you." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth, then continued. "Oh. That's nice of her." Another lie. It was like watching a magician perform, her sleight of hand so quick, so practiced, that anyone else would have missed it. But I saw it all now. The mask slips. On Thursday night, she claimed she had another team dinner. I nodded, kissed her cheek, and watched her walk out in another new dress, one I'd never seen before. This time, I didn't stay home. I followed her. I felt ridiculous at first, sitting in my car a few blocks down, waiting for her to appear. But when she finally emerged from our street and hailed a ride, my chest tightened. I trailed the car at a distance, headlights dimmed, palms sweating against the steering wheel. She wasn't heading downtown to her office. Instead, the car wound its way toward a quieter part of the city, lined with small restaurants and bars. I parked across the street, heart pounding, and watched as she stepped out of the car and walked straight into the arms of the man I'd seen before. Mark. He pulled her close, kissed her lightly on the lips, quick, familiar, intimate. My stomach turned. They disappeared into a dimly lit restaurant, leaving me sitting alone in my car, staring at the door they just walked through. The drive home. I didn't follow them inside. I couldn't. I just sat there for a while, gripping the steering wheel, my breath fogging the windows. My mind screamed at me to go in, to confront them, to make it all stop, but another part of me whispered, not yet. Not like this. Eventually, I drove home. The city lights blurred into streaks through my tears, the rain once again falling in a steady drizzle. Seattle seemed to know my mood, mirroring it perfectly, each raindrop a reminder of the weight pressing down on me. When Emily returned hours later, her smile was faint, her cheeks flushed. "How was dinner?" I asked from the couch, my tone careful, neutral. "Good," she said, slipping off her shoes. "Long, but good." She leaned down, kissed me on the forehead, and walked upstairs. I stared at her back as she climbed the steps, every movement heavy with deception. Sleepless nights. I barely slept that night. My mind replayed everything, the kiss, the laughter, the lies. I stared at the ceiling, my heart hammering, wondering how long this had been going on. Weeks? Months? At dawn, I found myself in the kitchen, sipping bitter coffee, watching the rain streak down the window. Emily came down later, hair messy, yawning, looking every bit the picture of innocence. "Morning," she said softly, wrapping her arms around me from behind. I flinched before I could stop myself. She didn't seem to notice. "Morning," I replied, my voice flat. The friend I almost told. That afternoon, I met Andrew, my colleague, for lunch. We sat in a noisy diner, the clatter of plates and low hum of conversation around us. He noticed my silence immediately. "You look like hell," he said bluntly, sipping his coffee. "Didn't sleep much," I muttered, the same excuse I always gave. He leaned back, studying me. "It's more than that, isn't it?" I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to spill the truth, to have someone confirm I wasn't losing my mind. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I shook my head. "Just work stress." He didn't believe me, but he let it go. Confrontation practice. That night, while Emily was in the shower, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, whispering to my reflection. "Who is he, Emily? Why are you lying to me? Do you love him?" Each question sounded hollow, fragile, as if I didn't believe my own voice. My reflection stared back, eyes hollow, jaw clenched. When she stepped out of the shower, humming softly, I forced a smile and said nothing. Cracks widen. The following weekend, we were invited to a small get-together at our neighbor's apartment. Emily dressed beautifully, her laughter filling the room, her hand occasionally brushing against mine in public affection. To everyone else, we must have looked like the perfect couple. But I noticed the way she stepped into the hallway every time her phone buzzed, the way she returned with a forced smile, claiming it was just work. Later that night, as we walked home under the drizzle, I finally broke. "Who is he?" I asked quietly. She stopped walking, turning to me, her expression carefully blank. "What are you talking about?" "You know what I'm talking about." My voice trembled, but I forced myself to meet her eyes. The late nights, the lies, the messages. "Who is he?" For a moment, something flickered in her gaze, fear, maybe guilt, but then she smiled faintly, shaking her head. "You're imagining things, Dan," she said softly, her hand brushing mine. "You've been stressed. Don't let it get to you." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the words felt rehearsed, too smooth. We walked home in silence, rain pattering softly against the pavement. Breaking point. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling once again, my mind a storm. Her phone buzzed softly on the nightstand, and I turned toward her. She was asleep, breathing evenly, her face peaceful. I picked up the phone. My hand shook as I entered the passcode. The screen unlocked, revealing the messages. Dozens of them. From Mark. "I can't stop thinking about you. Last night was perfect. When can I see you again?" Photos. Smiles. Pieces of a life she was living outside of me. The air left my lungs. My chest ached, my eyes burned. I placed the phone back down, careful not to wake her. And then, quietly, I wept. Beneath the quiet skies. Part 4, the confrontation begins. I didn't sleep at all that night. The words from her phone replayed in my head like a broken record. Last night was perfect. When can I see you again? Each line felt like another knife in my chest. I lay there, staring at the faint glow of the streetlight outside our window, listening to Emily's soft, steady breathing. How could she sleep so peacefully while everything between us was burning to the ground? By the time dawn crept over the city, painting the sky in washed-out blues, I had made my decision. I couldn't keep swallowing the lies. I couldn't keep pretending. When Emily stirred awake, stretching lazily, I was already sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. "Morning," she murmured, her voice drowsy. I didn't answer. She sat up slowly, frowning. "Dan. You okay?" That was it. The last thread snapped. The first strike. "Who is Mark?" I asked, my voice calm but edged with steel. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second, then narrowed. "What?" I turned to face her fully, my jaw clenched. "Don't play dumb, Emily. Who is he?" She blinked rapidly, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right line. Finally, she shook her head, a small laugh escaping. "You're being ridiculous." I leaned forward, my voice low. "I saw the messages. On your phone. Last night was perfect. When can I see you again? Do you want me to keep quoting, or is that enough?" The color drained from her face. For the first time, the mask slipped. The explosion. Her voice rose, sharp, defensive. "You went through my phone. Are you serious right now? That's such a violation." I stared at her in disbelief, anger boiling over. "A violation? You've been lying to me for weeks, sneaking around, cheating, and you're angry that I looked at your phone." She crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. "You don't know what you saw." "Don't insult me, Emily," I snapped. "I saw enough. I saw everything. So stop lying. Just tell me the truth for once." For a moment, silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, she exhaled, her shoulders slumping. "The admission. It's not what you think," she said softly, but the fight was gone from her voice. "Then tell me what it is." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I swear I didn't." I felt my chest tighten. "How long?" Her lips trembled. "A few months." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "A few months. Jesus, Emily." Tears spilled down her cheeks, her hands clutching the sheets. "Dan, please. I didn't plan this. I didn't go looking for it. It just happened." "It just happened," I repeated, the words tasting like poison. "That's your excuse." The unraveling. We sat there, the air heavy with everything broken between us. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. Who is he to you? I demanded. Some coworker. A stranger. What is he? She swallowed hard. He's someone I met through work. He understands me, Dan. He listens. He makes me feel. Her voice trailed off, but the damage was done. Better than me? I asked coldly. She shook her head quickly, tears streaking her face. It's not about better. It's just, different. Different. That word again. It cut deeper than I expected. The war of words. I stood up, pacing the room, my hands trembling. Do you have any idea what you've done to me? To us? 8 years, Emily. 8 years, and you throw it away for someone who makes you feel different. She sobbed quietly, her voice breaking. I still love you, Dan. I do. I don't know how I let it get this far. I turned on her, anger and sorrow colliding inside me. Love? Don't you dare say you love me. You don't destroy someone you love. You don't crawl into another man's arms while your husband waits at home, wondering why his wife smells like perfume that isn't hers. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. For a long time, the only sound was her muffled sobs and the rain against the window. The aftermath of truth. When her crying slowed, I spoke again, my voice quieter now, almost hollow. Are you still seeing him? She hesitated. That hesitation was all the answer I needed. I nodded slowly, the weight of it crushing me. Then it's not just a mistake. It's a choice. Dan, please. No, I cut her off. Don't. I can't hear it right now. I grabbed my jacket and walked out the door before I did something I'd regret. The streets at dawn. Seattle was just waking up. The rain had slowed to a mist, the streets slick with reflections of neon signs fading into daylight. I walked aimlessly, my thoughts a blur, my chest aching. Everywhere I looked, I saw pieces of us, the cafe where we used to have brunch, the bookstore where she once surprised me with a gift, the park where we talked about having kids. Each memory felt like glass shards under my skin. How do you reconcile the person you thought you knew with the stranger they've become? Confiding in Andrew. By noon, I found myself outside Andrew's office. I didn't even remember deciding to come here. He looked up, surprised, when I walked in. Dan. What's going on? I sank into the chair opposite his desk, my head in my hands. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then the words tumbled out, raw and broken. She's cheating on me. His eyes widened, his expression softening. Jesus. Emily. I nodded, unable to lift my gaze. Are you sure? I saw the messages. I saw her with him. Andrew exhaled slowly, leaning back. I'm so sorry, man. That's brutal. I nodded numbly. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to scream, to break something. And another part of me just feels empty. He was quiet for a moment before speaking softly. You don't have to decide right now. Take your time. Figure out what you want, not just what hurts. His words made sense, but they felt like stones sinking into water, true, but impossible to grasp in the moment. Back home. When I finally returned home that evening, Emily was waiting at the kitchen table, her eyes red and swollen. Dan, she whispered, her voice breaking. I stood in the doorway, my hands trembling. I don't know if I can forgive you. She looked down at her lap, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. I don't know if I can forgive myself. The silence that followed was heavier than any words could have been. The days that followed our confrontation were like walking through rubble after a fire. The structure of our marriage still stood, technically, but it was blackened, hollow, ready to collapse with the slightest wind. We moved through the house like ghosts. Conversations were short, polite, meaningless. "Do you need anything from the store? Did you pay the bill? Good night." Her presence lingered in every room, but it felt like she wasn't really there. And maybe I wasn't either. The apology. 3 nights later, Emily finally broke the silence. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a half-empty glass of whiskey, when she walked in. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her posture slumped, like someone carrying invisible weights. "Dan," she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't look up. "I'm sorry," she said, and then again, louder this time, as if repeating it might make it more true. "I'm so sorry." The words hung in the air, useless and heavy.